In the preface, I talk about how, as a kid, I was 14 when my mom read a book called Nightfall at Nauvoo. It was written by my great uncle. Is that what he was to me? Yeah, Samuel Woolley Taylor. He was a good writer. And in the 1970s, he published a book, a fiction version of what he thought happened in Nauvoo, based on what historians were saying in those days. The historians were having a hard time getting published, but he was just a fiction writer, and nobody was demanding that he get all his stuff checked. So he'd written this rip-roaring story, and my mom read it. Now, my mom knew who Sam was, and she knew what his reputation in the family was, and that he was something of a black sheep. So when she read the story, she was surprised to find that he was actually not nearly as abusive towards Joseph Smith as she would have thought he would be. And so I saw her put the book down and say, you come out with a pretty positive view of Joseph Smith out of this book. And so I decided to read the book. It completely destroyed what little baby testimony and belief in God and the church that I might have had at that time, or at least belief in the church. Whoa. So for decades, I harbored doubts. I went about the work, and I was white-knuckling. I was a missionary. I was a Relief Society president, actually not in that order. And I married in the temple and all of these things. And I still had this major doubt about Joseph Smith and the church. And then I realized that the God that I had experienced in my life was the God that Joseph teaches, as opposed to what general Christianity teaches. And a couple years after that, I had a reason to give a presentation about my ancestor who was governess in the Smith household in Nauvoo. And I felt compelled to write about the 7 women that I descend from who were married to men who had other wives. I didn't want to do that because that's weird stuff. But as I looked at it as an engineer, I started realizing that in an era that really didn't have birth control, children weren't showing up when you would be expecting children to show up if everybody was being all, crazy that way. And so I decided to start pursuing the hypothesis. What if they weren't all just having sex the way that we've always assumed, and that certainly Sam Woolley Taylor was assuming that they were having sex?